Hi everyone. Welcome to the final episode of our Halloween Holiday Scareathon 2014. As a special treat and by request of the voters, we are going to review the Evil Dead Trilogy. The Evil Dead films trilogy, of course, it has three films. The Evil Dead, a horror film that was made in 1981. The Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, which was a comedy horror film made in 1987. And Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness, which is a comedy dark fantasy film that was made in 1992. The movies vary in cast, but they are consistent in two areas. Bruce Campbell plays as the chainsaw-wielding, boomstick-toting, deadite, butt-kicking, Necronomicon-tormented Ash Williams. And the movies are directed by the very talented Sam Raimi of Spider-Man trilogy notoriety. Excuse me. The Evil Dead was distributed by New Line Cinema, which merged with Warner Brothers. And so Warner Brothers holds the rights to the classic Evil Dead movie, the first one. They also have the rights to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which we may review at a later time or maybe next year. They have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit that are based off of J.R.R. Tolkien's work. Now somehow, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow the Mountain of Poop, owned by Via Butt, secured the rights to Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Reapy, do you know how they did it? I don't know either. Silence. That's the only word. That's the only response of how. Silence. We don't know how that they could get their hands on a movie of this caliber. But hey, you know what they say. Junk happens. Now, considering the company that owns the rights to it is a mountain of poop, this makes it a good poop. But it's a poop nonetheless. If you already have it, go and watch it. It's a great movie. But if you don't have it, you might as well put both of them up, 1 and 3, and take a nice soft poop in your hands, that good poop, and shove it in between the two DVDs. Just to fill up the space of the second one. The third one, thankfully, and in a weird twist of fate that I actually enjoy, wound up in the hands of Universal Studios. Now, I mentioned in the Beetlejuice review that they have the classic movie monsters, and the ones of the black and white glory days, and they have the Jurassic Park franchise. Joseph LaDuca, for some reason I keep wanting to call his name DeLuca, but it's LaDuca, arranged the music for all three films. And on the third film, he combined forces with the ever-talented Danny Elfman of Beetlejuice fame and of Batman fame. Danny Elfman, if I remember correctly, also scored Men in Black. So they have him also working on Army of Darkness. The Evil Dead Trilogy is a cult classic. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It is a cult classic. It is a classic in every sense of the word. It has spawned comics, a video game, a remake even, and catch this, it even spawned a musical. Just, I don't know about you, Reeve, but the idea of Ash singing and dancing on a Broadway play, yeah, I don't see it. Now, the first film has Bruce Campbell playing Ash, Ellen Sandweiss as Cheryl, Hal Delrick as Scotty, Betsy Baker as Linda, and Sarah York as Shelley. The second film has Bruce Campbell playing Ash, once again, reprising that role. Ellen Sandweiss, second film has Bruce Campbell as Ash, Sarah Betty as Annie Noby, Dan Hicks as Jake, Cassie DePaiva as Bobby Joe, Ted Raimi as the possessed Henrietta, Denise Bixler as Linda, Richard Domeyer as Professor Ed Getley, John Peaks as Professor Noby, Lou Hancock as Henrietta Noby, and Ash's possessed hand. Yes, Ash's possessed hand actually made the cast. The third film has Bruce Campbell once again reprising the role of Ash Williams and Evil Ash. Embeth Davidtz plays as Sheila. Marcus Gilbert plays as Lord Arthur. Ian Abercrombie plays the Wise Man. And a little interesting note, Universal, who also has the Jurassic Park trilogy, Abercrombie played the butler for John Hammond, if I remember correctly, in Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World. And he's also in this one. So, kind of a 2 degrees of separation, is that right? Anyway, Richard Grove plays as Duke Henry the Red. Timothy Patrick is Quill as the blacksmith. Michael Earl Reed as Goldtooth. Bridget Fonda actually plays as Linda. Patricia Tallman plays the possessed witch. Ted Raimi plays as the cowardly warrior. The second supportive villager, Anthony the S-Mart clerk. Angela Featherstone plays as the S-Mart store girl. And Noah Gillespie plays as the pit monster. Well, now that we have the cast and the director and the composer out of the way, let's open this Necronomicon and see what this twisted tale of the strange and unusual holds. The Evil Dead tells the story of 5 college students from Michigan who journey to the woods of Tennessee, to the hills of Tennessee, the woody hills of Tennessee. Yeah, go Tennessee. We have the Necronomicon. They go camping at a cabin, and the movie doesn't waste any time. It doesn't jerk you around. It doesn't beat around the bush. It doesn't waste any time in showing you that the cabin is haunted. With the swing hitting the door of the cabin and then stopping. It is in this cabin that these students find the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Sumerian Book of the Dead, bound in human flesh and inked in human blood. Now, while none of them could read it because it was in ancient Sumerian or Kandarian, they found a tape recorder where the professor who found it made a recording of the book. When they play it back, all chaos breaks loose. All chaos just breaks loose. It's crazy. It's complete pandemonium. An evil demon is called forth and it begins to torment the 5. As the demon picks the 5 apart, Ash learns that the only way to essentially stop someone who is possessed is through dismemberment. Taking the hand off. In one particularly gory scene, Scotty has to hack up his ex-girlfriend, Shelley, with an axe. Of course, we see her body parts and her severed head still just moving around. It's crazy. And it's really, really gross. It is a complete bloodfest. Now, overall, The Evil Dead is a scary, bloody mess of a good time. It isn't the stuff of nightmares, though. It's not scary like Pet Sematary or Friday the 13th. It's a gore fest, is what it is. It's not really the stuff of horror. The best way to describe it is it's a mix of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre mixed in with The Exorcist. And it's definitely worth watching on Halloween. Well, on to Evil Dead 2. You ready for it? Yeah, we're ready for it. Dead by Dawn. This movie will make you wish you were dead by dawn. The opening begins with a warning that the movie is too intense, or it contains scenes too intense for viewers under 17. Well, I tell you what the real warning is of this movie. I tell you what the real warning is, Reefy. The real warning, viewers, is that this movie was made by Mount of Poop. Or they have the copyright, actually. It wasn't made by them, but they have the copyright to it. That fact alone makes it too intense for anyone to watch. Mount of Poop. Why do I have to sit through another Mount of Poop movie? Oh, and you know what I just realized? Transformers 1, 2, 3, and 4. When I do that review, I'm going to have to sit through 4 Mount of Poop movies. It's a mountain of... I can't say it. Can't say it because I got to keep it clean. We quickly find that this movie is not a direct sequel. It has, within the first 10, 12 minutes of the film, it's a retelling, but it's a very loose retelling. Instead of having 5 students, it just has Ash and his girlfriend Linda going into the cabin. Instead of, like I said, the other 5. In this one, we see that the demon is summoned by the Necronomicon, but in the last movie, the Necronomicon was burned. In this movie, it's not burned. And we also find out that this demon, for some reason, doesn't like the light of day. It seems to be a common theme in horror movies that evil doesn't like daytime. Except for The Walking Dead. I like that show. It actually shows zombies, instead of it just at night, it shows them in the day too. It's like, what, do the zombies retreat at night like vampires or something? No, I don't think so. Well, in this one too, the cabin itself gets possessed. Because there's not 5 people to possess, the cabin itself gets possessed. And starts doing some really weird and funny stuff. I know one of my favorite scenes in the movie is where this deer head, this mounted deer head on the wall just starts laughing. And the lamp starts laughing and moving up and down. And it's like the whole cabin starts laughing. Books start opening and laughing. And it's like maniacal laughter. Another funny scene is when the headless corpse of Linda is brought up out of her grave and starts dancing around to a sort of dance of the dead. And we can't forget the torment that Ash goes through when he has to cut off his own hand. That's right, he had to lop that thing off. He had to get rid of it because the hand went bad. And one thing that is particularly funny is he takes a bucket and puts over it and puts some books on top, and one of the books is a farewell to arms. So I caught the irony in that. I definitely caught the irony in that. Of course, I also feel the need to add that it is the mountain of poop owned by Via Butt that owns the copyright to the movie. They cannot claim that they made this gold nugget. They can't claim that they made it. No. This genius movie was made by Mr. Raimi and Mr. Campbell. They made, well, Campbell didn't really make it, but he starred in it. But you get the point that I'm trying to make. Is the actors, it is the director that makes the movie good. The fact that they own this evil studio owns the copyright to it. Well, they don't even own the international copyright, I believe. But the thing is that they own the copyright to it. The fact that they do is like taking a beautiful rose and sticking it in a piece of dog dung. It's like having a nice, beautiful flower just sitting right in the middle of a big cow pie. It's like taking something good and funny and just smearing one of Ame's horse piles all over it. Now that I got that out of my system, it is the excellent humor of Raimi and Campbell that pull off the joke. Of course, this evil hand really torments Ash, same way that I'm tormented by a mountain of poop, and that's the last time I'm going to reference that. But another thing that's really interesting is the inconsistency. In the first movie, they had a single barrel shotgun. In the second movie, they had a double barrel shotgun. Of course, this film introduces the professor's daughter, Annie, who's trying to get some of the Necronomicon's pages that had somehow gotten separated from the book back with this original book. Of course, this film isn't anywhere near as gory as the first one. The first one was just a blood fest. I mean, you might as well just paint the whole screen just red with blood. Just bathe in the blood. But this one is not that gory. It has some dark humor about it. But it's not anywhere near as gory. Another thing about this movie is that it portrays Southerners as being ignorant hillbillies. I'm somewhat offended, but not totally, because I am intelligent. I do not fit the stereotype. Now, in the movie, you have this hillbilly, Jake. Now, we have to understand, to set up the scene, Bobby Joe got scared by the demon-possessed cabin, and so she runs off into the woods. And they have one shot to defeat this demon, and that's the Necronomicon's pages that Annie brought back. And this hillbilly Jake, he's going to be a man. He's going to toss them pages in the cellar because he's going to get the gun and make sure that they go out and find his woman. And yes, I am making fun of my fellow Southerners. The movie does. I'm kind of offended, as well as any Southerner should be, because there are plenty of intelligent Southerners, as there are plenty of ignorant ones. And just the same as with the North, just the same as with the West, just the same with the East. There's intelligence and ignorance in all walks of life. I know if I was to be there, I would have a gun to help fight off this evil demon, but I certainly wouldn't throw the one shot I had to defeat this demon in the stinking cellar. sorry, Reefy. He can take a beating. And I don't know if you heard him squeak when I did that. That's not him breaking. That's he inflates, and so that's the air going out of him. Because there's an airflow vent in back, keeps him from bursting. Of course, this guy's gonna do that number, and he winds up paying for it because eventually he dies. I'm not gonna tell you how he dies, but just know that he dies. Another character that's introduced in the second film is that of Evil Ash, or Possessed Ash. And he seems to get possessed at very inopportune times within the movie. You have to watch it to find out. Now, Evil Dead 2, for what it's worth, even though it is owned by... it's a good film. Now, if it wasn't so important to the trilogy, I would just say to skip it. But you need to watch it because it sets everything up for the third movie. Now, without giving much away, the movie ends with Ash being hurled through a time portal or wormhole or whatever you want to call it. And just a word of warning, if you have seizures, you may want to turn away at that scene because there's a lot of flashing lights. I know it made me sick near about just watching it. So it's just, because it's real freaky, I mean, with flashing lights and stuff. So if you have epilepsy, if you have seizures, turn your head at that scene. But it sets things up when he falls out of that wormhole for the third film, and the best one, the strongest one, and the funniest one in the trilogy. This is it. It's the movie we've all been waiting for. It sets things up for the Army of Darkness. That's right, Army of Darkness. It's also the most action-packed of the movies too. Bet you didn't know that, Reefy. Now, I know we looked at the studios already who own the copyrights to the film. And I'm very pleased that we made it through the second one to come out on the third one, owned by Universal Studios. I always enjoy Universal movies. I don't know if it's because they just put out good quality movies or if it's the very fact that they aren't a big steaming pile of poop. But I also like their opening. The da-da-da-da-da-da, and it has the Universal coming around the world and stuff like that. It's soothing, and it just sets everything up for the movie. It's perfect. It's like the THX thing, the audience is now deaf sort of thing. Anyway, there is something that doesn't make any sense about these movies. It goes from having a single barrel to a double barrel shotgun. In the first film, Ash was a college student. In the second film, it's never stated. And in the third film, he works at S-Mart. He's a sales clerk. Another thing that doesn't make any sense about the movie is the end of the second film, because he shows up when he comes out of the time portal and kills a deadite, and he is hailed a hero. In this film, it opens up with him being a prisoner. A prisoner in chains, being led to his death. The only way that I can explain these discrepancies, and I conversed it over with Reapy here, is his job was part-time. And when he fell through the wormhole, he was held the hero, but then there was some time passed in which he was taken prisoner. Of course, with the second one, the movie just completely does away with that theory, because as soon as he arrives, he's taken prisoner. It's a big discrepancy. So logically, this movie doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None of the three make any logical sense. I know it's supposed to be a trilogy: Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and Evil Dead 3, but they don't line up. It's more like Evil Dead, Dead by Dawn, and Army of Darkness. Three standalone movies, but they tied again together. They form sequels, but they don't follow any coherent plot. Well, the major plot is coherent, but the thing is, it doesn't. There's little discrepancies that make big loopholes. Of course, we're dealing with the Necronomicon that had mounted deer heads laughing like a maniac and headless corpses dancing. So, going from 5 students to 2, and the other little logical flaws that take place in the 3 films, I guess we could just chalk it up to the Book of the Dead at work. So, anyway, the movie opens up like something out of the Elder Scrolls. I mean, it's just like Skyrim. You open up in Skyrim, you're a prisoner, about to be put to death, and then a great evil shows up that interrupts the ceremony, and you fight the evil. And and in Skyrim, you blow folks away with a Fus Roda. In this movie, Ash, the protagonist, he is a prisoner about to be put to death, and a great evil interrupts the ceremony, or not really interrupt the ceremony, but he's thrown into the pit, and he has to fight a great evil, and he gets to blow folks away with his boomstick. So, yeah, it's almost a direct parallel. So, I mean, thing is, he fights Deadites instead of Alduin. Of course, instead of fighting this scary, horrid-looking, blood-spewing demon like he did in the first film and the second film, this third film actually looks like something out of WrestleMania or something like that, like a pro wrestling match. You have her come up, and instead of doing whatever, she comes up and she punches him in the face, and takes him and just punches him in the face, and you have the cheering crowds around him. It's like a steel cage match. Reapy, I know what I need to review next. Or not necessarily next, but I know what I need to review coming up pretty soon. I need to review the wrestling games that I have. Remind me to jot that down. Let me get a pen and jot that down. Let's see. Review wrestling games. Review wrestling games. So anyway, this is like something out of a wrestling match. She punches him in the face. She does backflips and acrobatics, and like I said, you have the cheering crowds, everything. Now, of course, when Ash climbs out of the pit, you have one of the most epic movie scenes. I mean, this ranks up in there with They Live with Roddy Piper. I've come to kick butt and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Ash is like, he climbs up out of the pit, and he's like, all right, who wants some? You want some? Do you want some? You. I bet you want some. Yeah. And then he like holds up his gun and he says, "This is my boomstick," and everybody just cowers. But wait a minute, we have another logical flaw. How in the name of the Necronomicon did he get his gun back? That's what I want to know. When he's lowered into the pit, he doesn't have his chainsaw and he doesn't have his gun. He gets his chainsaw from the wise man. When he gets his chainsaw, and then he climbs up out of the pit, he clearly, if you look at the scene, he does not have his gun. He doesn't have his gun. And then all of a sudden he pulls his gun out and blows the sword out of Lord Arthur's hands. But I think we just answered our own question. When we said, how in the name of the Necronomicon? And that is the answer, of course. Why didn't we see it before, Reby? The answer is, it's the Necronomicon at work. It's the answer of every illogical thing, from why does the gun change? Why does his profession change? He goes from a college student to being a sales clerk. Why does he go from being a hero to a prisoner? Why does the movie go from being a horror movie to a dark fantasy? It's the Necro-Stinkin-Nomicon. It's the Necro-Stinkin-Nomicon. The Necro-Stinkin-Nomicon. Of course, the windmill scene is hilarious. You have the many evil ashes, so something out of a fairy tale. That fairy tale, Gulliver's Travels, I think it is. They have him tied down, and there's the cemetery scene, and the scene where evil Ash starts coming out of the shoulder of good Ash. Those scenes have a lot of slapstick. I mean, poking in the eyes and slapping and stuff like that. I mean, it's like something out of the Three Stooges. In fact, if I remember correctly, they cited the Three Stooges as one of their inspirations. Oh, kind of interesting. Anyway, Ash goes to get the Necronomicon from its resting place in the cemetery, and he's supposed to say the words Klaatu Varada Nectu to get the book. And he messes it up. He messes it up, and so the next thing you know, you have evil Ash that he just blew away with his boomstick, rising up from its grave. You have skeletons coming up, and evil Ash is leading an army of the dead, and you have this epic battle between the dead and the living. And the battle itself is not void of humor. Yes, the battle itself is some funny mess. It's some funny stuff. It'll have you grinning the whole way through. For a trilogy, the Evil Dead Trilogy is just awesome. It's a funny, illogical gory mess of movies that any fan of horror, comedy, and action can enjoy around Halloween season. It's a series of movies that I highly recommend, even if one of them is owned by now, what's the phrase to get rid of that movie studio again? The one I don't like is Klaatu Varada Necktie Nickel. I got it. Nincompoop. Well, I guess I got it wrong, and so they're still around. Next thing you know, they're going to rise up from the grave to try to come after me. Anyway, that's it for this year's Halloween Holiday Scare-a-thon 2014. Everyone have a safe, happy Halloween. To the kids, don't get too filled up on candy. To the adults, take the kids trick-or-treating and have fun this Halloween. Not a lot of people have fun on Halloween anymore. But if you do, be safe. Have a happy Halloween, everyone. And as always, if you like this series, if you like what you see on Junk Friends, if you enjoy it, click that like button, please. Subscribe. Share with your friends. We look forward to doing more movie reviews. We're going to be doing some Christmas reviews coming up, Reefy. Of course, you won't be in it because you go with Halloween. But we're going to be doing some Christmas reviews. And I may try to start some of them in November so that we can have more coming up so we can put more out in December than what we've done for Halloween. Kind of got a late start this year. And I look forward to next year's Halloween too. And we're going to be getting the list ready of the movies that we want to review for next Halloween, and I want to get an early start on them too. And so, until next year, this is Will and Reapy signing out.